Hi, I'm Edward, and thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation about contemporary music, creativity, and composition. So, to start things off, would you mind giving a brief introduction of yourself to the audience?
Hi, I'm Dave Soldier. I'm a musician, composer, and I'm also a scientist under the name Dave Soldier.
So, right to our first question. You've composed everything from chamber operas to pieces performed by elephants and even music using brainwaves. So, what's the initial inspiration behind your composition pieces? Can you share insights into your creative process?
Yeah, that's a tough question, Edward. I think um, yeah, that's almost like a question from a therapist or something, right? What's the ideas behind it? Why do you bother to do this stuff? Um, my mentor, who would now be 125 years old, one of my mentors, Otto Luning was an inventor of the synthesizer and of electronic music. And he would tell me that real composers don't have a choice. They kind of, you're kind of impelled to do it. If you don't do it, you don't feel satisfied. You don't feel alive. You don't feel like you're using your life appropriately. I have, if I look at that statement, I could say, that's not true. You're alive if whether you're writing music or not. But it's for some reason it becomes very important. And I don't think it's just only music, and I don't think it's only the arts. I think there are a lot of things that we love, and then we just feel compelled to do them.
Right.
Whether they make us money or make us more attractive to, sexually or build us, uh, build a bigger mousetrap or a larger house or a bigger yacht. We just feel like, no, this is important. Now, why is it important? I don't know why anything by endeavors of our species or any other species is necessarily important, except for things like, you know, we want to ensure the next generations or something like that.
Right.
But
Um,
somehow it becomes important to us. So let me turn it back to you. How come? Why the hell do you play the viola? I mean, how many hours a week do you practice?
I'd say daily I like to practice like anywhere from 2 to 4 hours.
Yeah, 2 to 4 hours every day. That's a lot of damn time. And what do you get out of it? You get out of being out of it, you get to be a better viola player.
Yes.
So,
And yeah.
and then why would you want to be a better viola player?
Um,
I
well,
mean, I don't think
yeah,
expect you to have an answer to that question, just
right.
like the one that, but I'm having
Yeah.
asked it, I am curious what you're going to say.
Just to for me, I have multiple inspirations. First of all, just to honor the people who made it possible. Whether it be my teachers, my parents, and one of my biggest inspirations, my sister. And
Hmm.
also the opportunities that I get from playing music, that were just made possible with the language of music. Whether I get to play for people I love or I get to play, for one of my main inspirations is just seeing the emotions that come from, the audiences I play for, whether it be audiences in a concert hall, in hospitals. And I think just being a better violist means becoming a better communicator. And I just love that aspect of like how I can put in my own efforts into producing something beautiful.
So you just answered that so much better than the I did. I asked you the same question. You answered it so much better. The honor. and then also the ability to convey emotions from one person to the next, which is
Hmm.
really tough, but we can do that.
Right.
We can do that through music and the arts.
Right. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, that was a great answer. And if anybody ever asks me that question again, I'm going to steal your answer. I hope that's
Thank you. Um, yeah, so yeah, thank you for that conversation. Yeah. So, next, is there a piece you would like to share, like the key musical ideas or themes you explored?
You mean one of my own pieces or any?
Yes, like a specific,
Uh,
yeah.
well, one that I'm working on right now that
Hmm.
is, I mean, it's recorded and you can hear it on Spotify. But I'm working on a book right now that explains it. Is the music of the spheres. You've heard this term before, the music of the spheres?
Yes.
It's an
Hmm.
old term. It goes back at least to Pythagoras, probably before. So the idea is, thousands of years old. But the what it means, and I'm going to assume you don't know this, and anybody watching this doesn't probably does not know this. The reason they use that term sphere, because I didn't know it until recently, is because the old idea of the world was, you know this, the Earth is in the center and the sun res, rotates around the Earth. But in order to make all that work, the other planets revolving around the Earth, the sun revolving around the Earth, and even all the stars revolve around the Earth, which is crazy when we think of it now, right? But until Copernicus and even until Kepler, which, 500 years ago, almost all of humanity thought that we're stationary and all the stars are rotating around us once per day, right?
Hmm.
As well as the
Right.
sun. And how could that be done? And people tried to figure it out. And the idea was each one of the planets and the sun and the moon and the stars are on spheres. So
Hmm.
with there's one sphere, the celestial sphere, that has all the stars, so that they all move together and rotate around us. And then, Mars, because Mars doesn't rotate with the other stars, planet means wandering, whereas the other stars are fixed. Mars needs its own sphere. And so um, people thought all these spheres have to be spinning around us, rotating around us daily. Um, how you get enough power and energy to move all those spheres was, a puzzle. The idea was there was somebody called the prime mover who was sitting out there moving everything. Um,
Hmm.
so when they were talking about the music of the spheres, they kind of meant it literally. What are the harmonies that are produced as all this massive, massive spinning around the earth is happening? So, when Kepler and Copernicus said, "Sorry, guys, you're seeing it from it, we realize that it looks to you like the sun is spinning around us, but really that's an illusion. We're actually moving around the sun." You know, all that changed, and then bit by bit it became clear that there weren't actually physical spheres either. That was disproven by Tycho Brahe, an astronomer in the 1600s, late 1500s, 1600s, who showed, who was very good at observations and showed that a comet must be traveling between the spheres because
Hmm.
first it was in this sphere of the stars and later it was in this sphere of Venus or something like that. So it had to be penetrating spheres. Therefore, the spheres, if they existed at all, could not be solid spheres. Um, so that's a long way, and we can keep going on it. But the um, Johannes Kepler still was trying to figure out, well, okay, but maybe there aren't solid spheres, but what is the music of the world? And he said, before that, you might think the creator was kind of on Earth, and listening to all these spheres moving around. But once Kepler said, no, guys, come on, we got to face the fact it's the sun is, we're spinning around the sun. Okay, well, then maybe God is sitting on the sun. If he's sitting on the sun, what is the music that God's hearing? And so he became very specific about that. How many voices? 6. Does the moon make any sound? No. What are the notes they can sing? Each planet gets its own um, range. Its own musical range. Venus only can go between an E and an E flat. Mars, on the other hand, well, Mercury has a range of a whole octave and a half. This has to, how do you define this? You define this because you take a string like a viola string, and if you have a taut string and you go exactly in half, you have a harmonic, and that's going to be the first octave. And you probably also know if I put on the C string, I put my finger lightly on the G. Now I get an octave and a fifth. Did I just say that right?
Yes,
And
yes.
then that's dividing the string exactly in thirds. Okay. So Kepler said, well, what if the string, you just made the string round, so it's like a planetary orbit. Wherever the planet is going to change the pitch of the string. But planets don't move in a perfect circle. They move in an ellipse, which is like an egg. He described it as an egg. So when you are closer to the sun, the string is essentially more taut, and it's like turning the key, the viola peg. Now you're playing a
Hmm.
higher pitch.
Hmm.
And that's called the that's called the I'm going to screw this up. The aphelion. No, the aphelion is the furthest way, the perihelion. And the aphelion is when the planet is the furthest away. And we're we're speaking on July 3rd, 2025. I believe this year's um, aphelion, the furthest away the Earth is from the sun in its elliptical orbit, is like today or tomorrow. So we would then be playing the lowest pitch
Oh.
on the planetary string. So these are the kinds of things he did. And by trying to come up with the harmony of the universe, he was also trying to come up with the harmony of music. And he gave a bunch of detailed instructions on what all that should be and
Mm.
asked that somebody write a motet. And so here, 400 years later, I've written the motet, but then the it's microtonal. So who the hell is going to sing it? Well, fortunately, in New York, there's a microtonal choir, and they're called Ekmelis. It's run by a singer named Jeff Gavitt, Gavettt. And they have trained themselves to sing in microtones. So they were able to sing and record Kepler's piece, which I'm double billing. And Kepler didn't actually write any music, but he gave instructions on what the music should be. So since he's not around here to complain, I've I'm crediting the composition to myself and to Johannes Kepler. Call it a co-composition.
Mhm. Are there any other new directions or like unexplored areas within music composition that you're excited to go into in your future projects?
Oh, heck. I mean, music is everything, right?
Hmm.
It's just, I guess it's organized sound, although sometimes maybe it's disorganized sound or even spontaneous sound. So there's so many directions. It's just bewildering.
Hmm.
I think it was bewildering even in the Baroque period or the blues, where you had quote rules. I think it was bewildering even then. And right now, there's so many choices, right?
Hmm.
You could write you Edward Lee tomorrow. You could say, well, I'm going to write a disco piece. No, I'm going to write a Forlane. No, I'm going to write a raga. Right? I mean, what are your instruments? How loud should they be? Do you want to write one that is going to be heard by nobody or by millions of people? I mean, there's so many different directions.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess I have some personal ones that I get excited by, but um, there's just like it's kind of overwhelming. I start to think sometimes that all right, let's take Spotify right now. I believe there's something like 6 million artists on Spotify. But then there are plenty of other people who are making music all the time and they're not on Spotify.
Hmm.
And then there's the whole history of music, and most of those people are on it. But then there are people just singing to themselves or singing at home. And then there's animals and insects and even fish, much less songbirds, and whales making music all the time. It's like this is just a musical planet.
Hmm.
I don't think we can handle. It's analogous to what we were talking about before, thinking about all the stars. Until 500 years ago, it was a little easier to think about the stars because there's just one big ball and all the stars are glued into it, and you can kind of handle that. But when you have to handle the idea that there's could be an infinity of stars with no end, that's that um, is easy for me to say, but not really easy to conceive of.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
I'd say the same, what's going on with organized sound and I don't want to limit music to only organized sound,
Hmm.
um, because you can come up with, you're out in the field at night and you're hearing the frogs and you're hearing the crickets and those crickets are interacting and maybe they're interacting with the frogs. To us, that's not organized sound, but it's organized sound too.
Hmm.
There is an interesting writer named Bernie Krause, Krause. Might even be want to be somebody you want to interview.
Hmm.
Bernie has been recording the sound of wild environments for 40, 50 years. All right.
Oh.
Listening to how they change as species disappear, etc. Um, and you can learn a lot about it, about the environment just by listening to the sound of the animals. But one thing that's interesting out of that is he says that a very healthy environment of animals, the pretty much the whole frequency range is covered. Okay. But then when the environment starts to get degraded, there becomes holes in the bands. So maybe there's no sound around 3,000 kilohertz or something. Um, which kind of means everybody, and by everybody, I mean other species as well as us, are kind of listening all the time, listening and then responding all the time, which is, I guess kind of awe-inspiring,
Hmm.
and troubling, both.
Yeah, definitely. Hmm. Yeah, that's a lot to think about there for our listeners at home. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I'm
So,
overwhelmed.
mhm.
We just had a we just had a gap. We can't think of what to say.
So, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on like AI technology with music composition. If
Yeah, I
there's
do.
any
I
like,
have an
yeah.
unusual thought on that. I made an AI Christmas record last
Hmm.
July, almost a year ago. I'm very proud of it. I
Hmm.
think AI is working incredibly well as a tool for satire. I think
Hmm.
I've fooled around with it a bit. You may want to talk to George Lewis, if you know George, is professor at Columbia, um, who does interactive AI concert music. But
Hmm.
and that's great and creative. I have I think one of the nature, especially with large language models, is they as everybody anyone in your generation knows, it's kind of let's predict the most common next word or the next common
Hmm.
phrase, and we'll stick it in there. And that's kind of, I find that very frustrating for actually trying to make, quote, I mean, like adventurous music or good music or
Hmm.
different music. It's not going to be different. It's going to be what's predictable and so on. And that's frustrating. And also, I like to write my own music. I don't want a damn machine writing the music. I want to write it, right? But as a tool, especially if it's a tool where you're making fun of things, I think it really
Hmm.
works. I think it works really well.
Hmm.
Because, if you want to make fun of a style, a genre, a singer, an
Yeah.
approach, I really like AI. So I would I would encourage you to play little bits of Dave Soldier's Christmas record. What do I call it?
Hmm.
Dave Soldier's Christmas. I don't know, something. My Christmas record. I have some name for it. And I'm very proud of the fake Christmas carols I came up with. And some of them are, and part of the reason to do that is because I've always been kind of get irritated around the holidays. You go into a store, you go into the mall, you hear, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer by
Yeah.
uh, Gene Autry or Roy Rogers, I forgot. And then you hear Burl Lives, and you hear, you hear all the same songs all the time. And I've always
Hmm.
wanted something subversive, you know,
Yeah.
like Satanic Christmas or, so, just, songs about kids being greedy or something. So, I came up with songs like uh, one where somebody ate way too much and then feels really sick and is in a mall and has to find a bathroom really fast. So that, I write a Christmas carol around, about that. So I find AI, and what's the AI doing? Well, I'm still writing the lyrics, I'm coming up with the idea, but the instruments and the singing is being done through AI. And
Hmm.
I've also done some political satires, like making fun of Trump, um, with AI. And it takes, at least for me, it takes a while because you
Hmm.
can program something comes back in a minute, and there it is. But it's usually not that good, and you have to go back and forth and back and forth. Some of the programs, well, the one that I've been using, which is a nice one, although you're going to ask me the name and I spaced the name out. But it's one of the two widely used commercial AI music programs. So we could figure it out in a second. But it's what works sometimes for me is split it into the different tracks. So you take the guitar part maybe and
Hmm.
put that against and chop it up and move it around. And that often seems to work best. So you use it as almost like a sound generator. And it's
Hmm.
particularly good for vocals if you don't mind them coming out kind of AI like. Another reason I rushed to make, it's Dave Soltier's Christmas album. One reason I rushed to make it was I realized that the quality of these things is just, jumping by leaps and bounds, right? And I
Right.
wanted to use it before it got too good so that you could hear all the glitches and the mistakes and silliness that happen. One of my favorite, I do have a favorite um, AI piece, and that is, think it's a fake Frank Sinatra song. I can't tell you
Hmm.
who did it, but you can find it. I think it's called Hot Tub Christmas.
Hmm.
So if you can find Hot Tub Christmas, and that may not be the precise name, but it's Sinatra's voice, it's the backup singer's voice, and at some parts, because it was AI of a few years ago, um, the words get screwed up and it just becomes nonsense syllables. And you hear Sinatra sing nonsense syllables. And so I'm afraid I've never gotten close to the quality of that. And part of the quality is AI not working that well.
Right.
So it's something to think about if you want to use it. You might want to, if you like the idea that it screws up, you might either want to use it soon or give it a challenge that that really
Right.
so it comes out
Hmm.
as glitch music, you know. So that can be fun.
Right. Yeah.
Are
Kind
you
of
sorry
scary to.
you asked now?
Mhm. Oh, sorry.
Are you sorry you asked that question?
No, I mean, I thought, like just showing like the separation we should have, like between, just because it's like there's a future where people just use it to, repeat stuff that humans do specifically. Um, I mean, in terms of songwriting, where it's
Mhm.
just imitating humans, and I think that satirical, view of using AI is just like a really interesting way to frame it. I've never thought about like using it that way, I guess.
Yeah,
I'll have to. Mhm,
you can have fun. I think listeners can have fun,
mhm,
and you don't. Mm. And you're using the non-creative aspect in the fact that it does come up with third-rate stuff.
mhm,
It's things which are predictable, non-creative, um, becomes an advantage sometimes. I mean, it becomes an advantage in that in a terrible way, in that we can guess that at some point most of the hit songs are going to be made by AI, right? I
right.
don't know that. I'm just guessing that's illogical. So that I wouldn't say that's an advantage at all. But to
Mhm,
make stuff which is deliberately uh making fun of things, that's a little different. I think
mhm,
and it's a challenge too, but it's using AI for what it's actually good for, not
mhm.
just coming, I want to hear what Christine Aguilera would sound like, if she were doing Eminem, if we're, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's like who did, with a bit of Cardi B or something like that. I know
Mhm.
it's I I kind of don't even want to hear that.
Yeah. Right.
But then as a collaborator, as a tool, becomes something else.
Mhm.
Maybe. At least it did for me. And after doing that album, I totally lost interest in it.
And another note, I've heard so many interesting things from you, but so I wanted to write articles for our organization too,
Hmm.
articles on just any type of contemporary music.
Hmm.
And I'd love to write about your motet, the harmonies of the world that you were talking about.
Thank you.
So if there's another, like opportunity where I could maybe find time to talk to you again more about that, or
Absolutely. And I'm working on the book right now. So if you like,
mhm.
when I'm done with my first draft, I'll send it to you.
That would be great. Yeah,
You can
thank
hear
you.
the music now.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I, Ekmelis did a fantastically good job. And we used um, a really remarkable recording studio called Q Department, which is run by a fellow named Drazen Bosniak. And I know this sounds strange, but it's in you know the Holland Tunnel in downtown New York? The Holland
No.
Tunnel is the tunnel that runs between um, Jersey City and goes sort of the uh, uh, um, under the Hudson River and then comes out in Lower Manhattan. And his studio is sort of under that. It's not
Hmm.
exactly under that, but it's below. It's like below the street, and
Hmm.
just to the side where all these cars are coming out. It's probably one of the most trafficked parts of the United States. Um, and it's built to be like the quietest studio you've ever heard because it's built with springs. So
Hmm.
it's constantly moving and deadening the vibrations that otherwise, when the trucks come. And um, Drazen is one of the developers of virtual reality sound. So if you put on the right kinds of headsets, so normally the earphones. So normally, uh, let's say the saxophone is over here and the viola is over here, and you move, and still the saxophone is going through this ear and the viola is going through that ear, right? Um, with this one, because we want you to feel like God who's sitting in the sun hearing the music. So you hear the planets spinning around your head individually. Here's Mercury moving faster than Mars, for instance, spinning around your head. And if you move your head, if Mars is here, now you move it and it's still here. And you
Hmm.
move physically in your chair like this, and now it's coming out of that ear.
Hmm.
And this is done with a computer program that senses where the headphone is, so that when you move it, it readjusts the stereo so that you can do that. And it was recorded with, I don't know, like 24 microphones and then put through this kind of system. So it's really kind of a, that what Drazen Bosniak did is kind of amazing. People aren't going to typically hear that because you need the headset, you need to download the software and so on. But it's if you can hear it, it's you haven't really heard music in that way before with that kind of
Hmm.
that that type of the ability to like, okay, now I want to hear the viola. Hmm? Okay, now the violas, you can turn your head and it's like you were sitting in the middle of the chamber ensemble and can focus on one instrument or another. But that's obviously that's good for the Kepler piece. So the conceit is you're sitting in God's chair and hearing
Hmm.
the music of the planets.
Hmm. Right. Hmm.
So okay,
Um,
yeah. Well, it's great talking to Edward. Good luck with this. I
Likewise, yeah.
intend to, yeah, I'm buddies with Miranda Cookson, who I know you interviewed, and she's I can advertise for both of us. She learned all my solo violin pieces,
Wow.
Calo, and has recorded them, and you can see them on YouTube or hear them on Spotify.
Mhm.
And I've made a viola version too that
Mhm.
Shi Cheng is who plays for the New York Philharmonic and the Met Opera is learning. And we've interviewed Curtis Stewart. I've worked a lot with Curtis, and I just wrote a concerto violin concerto for him that he just recorded.
Wow.
It's on found recording by the greatest of the jazz violin players. But you probably not heard him, but you should check him out. Named Stuff Smith. So Stuff
Mhm.
Smith left behind some melodies and ideas for violin concerto, but never actually wrote it. And so we
Mhm.
wrote, I put together Stuff Smith's unfinished concerto, and Curtis Stewart's learned it, recorded it, obviously plays the heck out of it. And I've heard, have you heard Curtis's solo violin pieces?
I have, yes.
Yeah, yeah, they're really creative, and
Mhm.
I don't think anybody else would have come up with them except him.
Mhm.
They're really remarkable pieces.
Right, yeah.
Okay, and you've got lots of other great artists that you're doing. So Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. I'm glad you're doing this.
Yeah, thank you again for your time and for sharing all of your perspectives on so much. I've learned so much from you today. I'm sure our listeners have too.
Oh yeah, 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 Ed. I enjoyed. I got more from you, especially now how to answer some of these questions. Oh yeah, you do it for the emotion. That's what you convey
Well,
emotion.
I'm wishing you the best in all your future projects, and it's been such an honor
And
to
you
talk
too,
to you.
Edward. Okay, talk to you
Thank
later.
you.
Bye now.
Bye.